Howdy, folks, and welcome to sort of an impromptu, last-minute planned Pear Talks Prun. Maybe the first of many, again, hopefully. Who knows? But today I have Archiel on the call with me as we are discussing everything and anything regarding, Prosperous Universe, the universe in general with regards to what's been going on with the various factions, what's been going on with the community, and sort of giving everybody sort of an update as to, just kind of what's up. When me and Archiel first started chatting about 12 minutes ago, I kind of told him that this really would be sort of an informal conversation regarding, like what's been going on in the Prosperous Universe, updates with the game itself, and also sort of the outlook onto the future of the game. And I thought of no better person to kind of start interviewing than, Archiel, as I know you've been playing.
Yeah.
How long, Archiel,
Yeah,
to start
thanks.
off with, actually, how long have you been playing the game now?
Yeah, I just checked. It's been 3 years. So
Holy
thanks for having
mackerel.
me back. Been a while. Glad to be here. Yeah.
That's insane, dude. That's pretty impressive. That's awesome, dude. Like,
Yeah,
so
consistent 3 years too, I guess.
well, and okay, can I ask this question if you don't mind me asking? And this is kind of a personal question, so give me some grace when I say this. But like what, I guess, what attracts you, like in terms of maybe your demographic or in terms of your, like, I'm a marketer, right? So I always
Yeah.
look at things in terms of a subset of like a demographic's needs or wants or what they're looking for, right? So that's my world I live in, like, constantly as a full-time job. So in terms of your
Sure.
demographic, what would you say, what kind of box do you find yourself fitting into often?
Yeah. Well, I consider myself a gamer. I'm rapidly approaching 40 years of age, and the other thing is like
Rapidly?
yeah, I mean, so I got an 8-year-old now, so
Oh, nice.
time
Congrats.
flies. Like it goes
Oh,
fast
no
now,
kidding.
and that's changed the kind of games that I play because like I can't sit down and play a game that I can't pause. Like
Hmm.
Eve Online, you can't walk away from it from 5 hours.
No.
Prosperous Universe, you can
The
check it any
intent is that
time
you
of
do
day.
walk away from it for 5 hours.
Yeah. uh, and the other thing is like I make video games for a living, so what I want to play, when I pick a game that I want to play, I'm looking for a unique experience,
For
something
sure.
that kind of fits, that'll be different from the stuff that I'm working on,
Yeah.
or whatever the case is. Yeah.
So with regards to, I guess, in terms of the video games you play, what do you find yourself typically, like you said, you're a dad, you got an 8-year-old kid.
Yeah.
Do you find yourself playing a lot more like, are you playing this because you enjoy factory games? Are you enjoying this because of the economy, sci-fi? What was sort of
Yeah.
the hook, line, sinker that kind of drew you to the game to some degree?
I think there's a little bit of everything in there that you've said. It's a sci-fi game. I like that. I like the economic aspect. I find that really interesting. I like that it's emergent gameplay. You're playing with
Hmm.
other people. Things are happening that the game developer didn't intend. You can have all these side jobs, side tasks, things that you're doing where you're more interacting with other people than the game itself. And I find that really interesting. Um,
Interesting.
yeah, like I do enjoy other games, like I love Factorio, stuff like that.
Totally.
But uh, you know, for different reasons and in a lot of ways, because this has the right amount of like person to person interaction for me, I think.
Yeah. No, 100%. That's interesting you brought that up about Factorio. Um, yeah, because Factorio was sort of it was one of, let's go that direction. It wasn't bringing on it popularized a genre in terms of factory games, and you're right. Like, it's sort of
Yeah,
like, I always see it as like a perfect marriage between like factory games and idlers, right? Like,
that's interesting. Yeah, I see people describe Prosperous Universe as an idle game, and I don't like that label. I like to think of it as like a real time game,
mm,
like a game where things happen uh in, on a real clock, rather than when you think about like cookie clicker, is the game is progressing, like
Hey, that's real time. You get cookies real time.
yeah. I'm struggling on the distinction, but for some reason they're different in my head. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's completely fair. Um,
And and
Roche,
and
only idle because you spend it so much time. Yeah,
I've kind of branched out and played like other games in the prosperous universe genre. And when you look at things like like Farmville or something, the point of Farmville is that you go in there and you click on everything once a
Mm,
day or on a timer.
yeah.
Prosperous Universe doesn't push the timer stuff as hard because your everything you put in a queue keeps happening. You don't have to set an alarm clock for the game to play it if optimally. And I think that ends up being like a functional distinction too
Well,
in how the game plays.
I will say yes and no. You're 100% correct on everything you've just said. I will say maybe a little bit rebuttal to that, though, would be fair to say. I think it would be fair to say, though, that if you left the game for a period of time, if you just kind of left it alone, your Tamagotchi would die kind of thing, in the
Yeah,
sense that, like, your
right.
buildings would degrade. Your buildings would degrade, and eventually you'd probably have to either collect. Like, I didn't, when I first came back to this game, I didn't collect because my buildings were literally ash. Like they were
Yep.
nothing. I knew they were. But I didn't collect because of that. I collected because I was like, oh, sorry, for those that are wondering, collect means restart the game. I restarted the game because I kind of just wanted a fresh start. I had an objective. I was like, I want to get to $1 billion, but I want to show people this journey, right? But
Yeah.
to back to my original point, yes, you can kind of set this game aside and like you can get it to the point where you don't touch this game for 10 days, right? But there will come a
Yeah.
point where you do have to come back and poke it a little bit
Yeah. Like
and
maybe you got to check it regularly, but you don't have to be on a schedule. Maybe
no.
that's
Yeah.
a good way of
Well,
putting
and
it. Maybe.
let's go this direction. Let's talk about that emergent gameplay section for a section there, or for a second there. It's you make the schedule. The game's not
Yeah.
being like,
Yeah.
okay, you're on a timer. You have like, yes, there's timers, of course. Well, let's go with like ship movement, for instance. Well, ship movement. I mean,
Yeah.
if you know you're not coming back to the game for like a day and a half, you can set your ships to fly back in a day and a half, kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Slow
Versus,
boat everything, right? Like
the game
yeah.
forcing you to kind of shoehorning you into that aspect, right? Um,
Right, right.
so that's interesting that you brought that up. I never really thought of it
Yeah,
like that, but
my ships, like they'll all arrive in the morning because I'm not going to have them arrive when I'm asleep overnight, but like maybe Clash of Clans, someone will attack you at 3 a.m. You might have to wake up and deal with that, or whatever, different games deal with that differently, but
yeah, no, 100%,
yeah.
100%. Well, thank you so much for the introduction, Archiel. And yeah, sorry, Eminence, Eminence. I think that's how you pronounce your name. Sorry, bud. Um, you said I should probably introduce myself. Um, so yeah, sorry. I'm Pear. I started playing the game about 2-ish years ago. I took a big hiatus for about a year. I came into this game when it dropped on Steam in May of 2 years ago, I think. Um, and yeah, when I first joined into the game, I'm pretty good at understanding software and learning how software is done and how the UI works. Um, but I realized like quickly, and I could follow the tutorials, but there just was I felt like a lot of nuance being missed. And I also felt like when you make a tutorial series, you gotta make it with our demographic in mind. Like you don't want to talk down to people, but in the same stretch, you also want to keep it accessible, right? So I started building tutorial series, and then eventually, actually, I was hired on by Simulogix. So they actually did pay me to actually build the tutorial series for the game, the revised tutorial series. So that voice you hear, I mean, if I sound familiar to you, it's because I actually was the voice of the official tutorials for this game. And I enjoyed doing it. Yeah, I enjoyed doing it, but it was a struggle. It was a struggle in the sense of like, okay, how do you explain things to me in the sense of like my demographic so that I'm not bored out of my gourd, but that I'm also it's accessible enough that I understand it and I can interpolate the data that I'm essentially being given. For myself, in terms of my demographic, I'm just near 30 years old. 29 right now. And like I said, I work in marketing. But yes, I actually do enjoy factory games as well. Factory games, science fiction. I grew up on Star Trek. I loved watching it growing up as a
Yeah,
kid.
definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, like so sci-fi, like it's kind of funny how there almost is sort of a distinction of nerds. And like I love fantasy. Don't get me wrong, like Lord of the Rings, love that stuff. I do. But it's almost like a nostalgic sort of near and dear to my heart has always been the sci-fi genre because that's really what my dad put in front of my face. That's what I really enjoyed watching and reading and consuming. And so it just clicked. It just did click. And as you said, Archiel, I really did enjoy. For me, I'm a pretty big extrovert. So for me, I was very much like the emergent gameplay, the multiplayer aspects of it. I was
Yeah,
very
yeah.
much like, let's make this happen. And I did enjoy it. But I guess maybe the point I will just quickly make before we hop kind of into the main topic at hand here, because I'd like to get this show on the road, is why I stopped. And I think I explained this a little bit in the, if you've watched my Road to a Billion video, my very first episode, but I'll just will quickly brief on it. Essentially, the TLDR is that it's not that I got bored of the game. It's not that I got bored of the game. The game was interesting. I enjoyed it, but I didn't have much else to talk about. And also, there just was some factors of how I was playing the game that wasn't matching up with the dev's vision for this game. And that kind of led me to some cognitive dissonance that I couldn't really get over at that time. And that's fine. Like that's the gaming industry. Devs make a game, they have a vision for the game, and if you don't like it, then you can move on to the next game. And that's what I did, right? And that's perfectly fine. Um, but here I am now. I'm back
Yep.
at it. And like I said to Archiel when we first started this thing, is I would like to chat about, yeah, just what's going on in the community. So Archiel, at first question I kind of want to pose to you, I want to kind of start broad and then let's start narrowing in on things as
Yeah.
we kind of go shoot along. And like I said, this is actually, I kind of joke when I say this, this is kind of more of a selfish endeavor on my behalf because I'm also sort of lost myself as to what's going on in the community and all this jazz. But let's start with a high level feature in terms of updates. So let's talk about game updates in general. Now, I'm not
Sure.
looking for you to go verse by verse as to patch note by patch note of each update, but can you talk and elaborate what were some sort of in the last year, some pivotal updates that happened with the game that you felt changed things for the
Yeah.
better, changed things for the worse? Can you, yeah, can you talk
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so you've got like the meta changes that happened with the game because of the players changing, but the mechanics of the game. I think the big ones for that, like gateways are coming. A lot
Yeah.
of people are changing their mechanics around that, like changing their production to match up with that. The new cargo bays are, what, 2 weeks old now, something like that, maybe three. So like we don't really know how much that's going to change the shipbuilding world and the world of like what is shipping going to look like, what is shipbuilding going to look like with 5K ships being around. We're still kind of figuring out that. uh there's been like, they've been slowly nerfing IDC and EDC over time, and that's kind of changing the landscape, but inflation overall is certainly going to make the prices look different from when you last played. Like everything is going to be higher than, I go back and I look at our old sheets of prices, and it's like, wow, everything's double what it once was. So, that's a thing that's out there. I think the availability of capital is something that has changed when they added loans as a feature, and that was
Can you speak to that a bit? So what exactly
yeah.
does is that an actual like legit feature in the game now?
Yeah. There's like three kinds of loans you can issue with, like annuity types,
Interesting. I didn't know
interest
about this. So
loans.
this is like I said,
Yep.
this is like me digging for knowledge here.
Yeah. So the nice thing about the loans are that they auto pay. So you set up a loan with somebody, and every week it's going to automatically make the payment as long as they have the cash in their account to get it out. So you've got like a very tiny bit of added security that, like, if they disappear, you might get another 1 or 2 months out of them before the loan defaults. And between that change and people just generally having a lot of money, loans are very available. If you want to put
Hmm.
out big bases on day one, or maybe your first month. That's something you can totally do with loans from a number of people. And we've had our drama where people have disappeared with 50 million, 20 million in loans.
Oh shoot, really?
Yeah. That's why we run a credit.
Yikes.
We run a credit bureau now, which we don't do credit reporting. We don't give people grades, but the goal is to kind of collect. So the issue with this person who disappeared 6 months ago is that they had talked to a bunch of people and gotten loans, but all of these people didn't talk to each other.
Oh
So
shoot, so they're like double dipping
realized that,
essentially.
he's got 20 million from me. He's got 20 million from
Yikes.
Allocator. He's got 20 million from somebody else, and like 10 million from Low Strife. And then it's like, oh, he's making, he's making an IDC base. You can't screw it up. Like, yeah, that's an okay thing for a loan because I know what the return is. And like some of that didn't happen. And then like he was making IDC bases for somebody else and they didn't get the stuff. And like, I think they just like it's not that this person had malicious intent. I think they just went too fast, too hard, and
yeah.
like
Can we go back for a second, Archiel? Dude, you're digging in so hard, and I'm loving it. I'm like, man, I really like. Yeah, you understand something about my brain? You start talking about things, and I'm like, I want to learn more. I want to learn more. Like curiosity. Yeah. But let's go back to the original topic. We'll dig into the community stuff. We'll dig in hard. I'm really looking forward to hearing more about this. So I don't want to derail the conversation by any stretch. I want to kind of keep it on topic here in terms of the official dev updates with the game.
Yeah.
One thing you never brought up that I found interesting was you never brought up. So you talked about loans, and rightfully so. I mean, I shot the question, but what about the governance update? Have you guys found that to be a thing, or is that really a non-starter for people?
Yeah, maybe that's an older one. Maybe I discounted that. No, it was a big update. It was a big change. It affected us a lot because we do a lot of governance stuff. Boy, I have so much to say. I don't know where to start.
Give me a summary. Give me a highlights in the sense of like, was this a good update or was this a bad update? Was this something that people were like, thank God for, or is this something that's like, we don't like anymore?
Yeah,
like, we really didn't like it.
No, it was great. Like mechanically, the important things there are all of the money collected by the planet goes into the planet bank account instead of like being utterly untrackable. So now
wait. So it goes into like a separate governance account now?
Yep.
Oh man, they must have learned from me when I did. I wasn't the governor of Katoa. I literally told people, I was like, I'm raising taxes. So I did.
Yeah. I mean, like I think they had a vision of the game where people would make corps, and corps would be a useful organizational structure. Sure. But most people couldn't, just like refuse to do that because it messed up the way that the accounting worked on planets.
Yeah.
So that is just straight up solved. There's a context system. So you go from the context of your company to the context of the government. And I'm on 12 planets as governor or a member of parliament. So I have to go through all those different contexts and check them all, which like it's a lot of clicking. Like it added more clicks, but like overall it was so good to have that information split up like that, so you could account each planet individually. I think there's some meta stuff that happened there. It really changed the meta landscape both in Antares and other places for how governance works. But like because everything is, it also helps in that everything is transparent. Everyone's aware of what's going on there.
That account, you said, that planetary account now. So let's say that a governor changes, like say a planet changes governance hands. Does that account stay with that planet or does it move with the governor?
Yep, stays with the planet.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So then let me ask you this. How do, if possible, how do players, like if you're a governor of a planet and your idea, because I mean, we're talking, this is at the emergent gameplay aspect.
Yeah.
Your idea of how to govern a planet or the motivation you have is to actually make a profit off your governance.
I think because
Maybe
of
that's
the
a too large,
yeah.
far off question. Sorry.
No,
If there's no mechanism, I just was curious.
Because of the mechanics of the game and there is, I think there's no real way for anyone to make a profit off of governing, because if people get the impression that you're profiting off governing, they'll raise a big stink, and that'll be the end of it. And because the books are so open, like you can check to see what they took out, you can check to see what they put in the population infrastructures. So it's still been a selfless job. Like there is a lot of support.
True.
There is a lot of support for governors paying themselves a salary, but if it's 90% support, someone's going to complain.
Well,
it's going to be
let's back up.
Yeah.
Let's back up. Sorry, let's back up for a second. Actually, you just raised a good point because I had to think about it for a second. But correct me if I'm wrong. But like, yeah, governors. If I remember being a governor myself, is I had to buy products to keep things running smoothly.
Yeah.
So how do I reimburse myself? Walk me through that.
So the standard behavior is, you become governor. You've got 4 other members of parliament. The governor does all the work universally. They bear all the responsibility. That's how the player base has decided it works. And you buy the things with your money. You ship them there on your ships. You put them from your inventory into the drinking water into the SST, whatever office supplies into the inf. And then after that's done, you add up the amount of money you spent on it, and you withdraw it from the government account to your account.
Well, back up. So then it sounds like you can still profit off the governance account.
Oh yeah, I mean you could pull all the money out.
Okay,
right?
I was thinking this is like some sort of separate bank account that's like untouchable by you, but you're saying that
no. Yeah, it's
I knew there was a way I could get back to Katoa and start making our profit. I mean, run the government.
I am not aware of a single instance where governors run off with cash.
Well, then you haven't met me, I tell you.
Yeah, I mean, this could be.
No, it's funny.
Your big
it's
thing.
funny because we raised taxes to do some improvements. That's what we did, but we didn't realize that there was like almost a latency on dividends. That was the problem that we faced. Was like, I remember looking at the dividend latency and being like, "Oh shoot, I'm actually making like way more money than I need to actually make this stuff happen." But yeah. You're the current governor. Eminence is the current governor of Katoa. Yeah.
Nice.
It's a funny time. Okay, that's great. I think we've covered that enough, and thank you so much for that update. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Any other updates that you'd kind of like to touch on that happened recently that you're like,
Yeah, I think mechanically, I think that covers everything.
Okay.
There's been some the quality of life stuff that's been trickling in, especially recently. Like multi-item contracts.
Yeah. Holy crap! Can we talk about that for a second? Yeah. Like, because I was doing this whole shipbuilding thing, right? That was our nascent mercantile. That was our thing. We were shipbuilding. Holy crap, dude! It was so annoying getting like 7 contracts. Yeah. Like,
no. So we sell shielded ships now.
Okay.
Which have some great advantages. But it's like 30 items or 28 items.
No kidding. Oh, dude, it's a freaking huge amount of items.
Yeah. The shields add another 6 or something if you count all the added bonuses stuff to it.
So shields, like, are you guys
it kills me to send these contracts, and like it's better now given that once you have the contracts made up.
Yeah. Shielded, like, are you guys going? Shields are for heated, like hot planets.
How much time do you want to spend on this one?
No, it's okay. It's okay.
All right.
Let's keep it. Sorry, well, that'll be for another podcast. We'll talk about shielded ships all day long.
We could do a whole thing.
Yeah. No, fair enough. I appreciate you staying on topic. Okay, well, that's great. Multi-item contracts, I think that's a great. I'm glad. Personally, here's the thing that I see from the devs. I did have a bit of criticism. It was I think a fair criticism of something that is. I'm passionate about the game. I am. Yeah. I've always been passionate about the game. But it has been like I felt like they were like dealing with languages and stuff like that, and I get that we have to be. I agree that we have to be accessible about the game, like keep the game accessible, and if that means like even doing like colorblind stuff or I actually am part of a group IRL that's deals with people that are hard of seeing as well, like
Sure.
partially sighted and things like that. So I am in full support of making the game accessible. However, that being said, it's for me, it's like I see some more meat on the table that needs to be dealt with in terms of multi-item contracts, governance, and then I think the big one, and it's hilarious. And I don't know. I don't know. I would love to interview one of the devs to find out if
Sure.
like, and I'm not trying to sound selfish or prideful here, but bear with me a second as I might do. If like me banging the pot of warp gates for so long finally had an influence on them.
Sure.
I mean, devs, if you guys are listening to this, like I'd love to know. But like I think warp gates, what they're gonna do for the game, they're going to bring I do believe that warp gates, and we're going to touch on this, Archiel. I know we are.
Yeah.
Is I think warp gates have the ability and the capacity to essentially bring the community together. I think that's it's a big infrastructure project that is going to like really bring the community together. And I'm looking forward to, I saw some of the things that you were doing, that other people were doing about warp gates, and I'm like, amen, brother. Like let's see it happen.
Exciting. Yeah.
Let's
I think the devs do a great job. So they add German because they know they can get
100%.
more players into the game, and that's really important for the health of the
Totally.
game. And they're doing a good job of bouncing around. Like they'll do some quality of life stuff for everybody. Then like gateways, I think I see as something that's helpful for more established players, because it is easy to get, when we lose an established player in our corp, it's either they got click burnout or they feel like they did everything. And multi-item contracts help with click burnout.
Totally.
And gateways help with like, hey, here's a new goal. So
well, exactly. I
yeah.
think warp gates are going to be a huge, because essentially one of the biggest, not pain points. It's not a pain point in the sense like, oh, I hate this. It's more of like, no, let's call it what it is. It is a pain point, but it's not like a pain point that causes people to leave the game. It's more of like what the community can do now is essentially build these. Let's talk about emergent gameplay. We can build the map. We can build the map how we want.
Yeah.
And
it's so cool.
Yeah. I'm like, amen. Let's make this thing happen and all this jazz. Sorry, we just saw a bunch of people come in to the Discord. I will edit this part out. If you guys want to speak up or anything like that, please feel free. All I ask is that you do introduce yourself so that we know who's speaking. But feel free to interrupt or say anything. This is an open format podcast, so it's not even a podcast really. It's just a video we're doing that's in a podcast format, audio format. So feel free. For the last little bit here, for the last about half hour, we've been chatting about, me and Archiel have been chatting about meta updates to the game changing things that the devs have done to kind of bring on new and cool things. And I think, multi-item contracts, this and that. It's all really great. One thing I want to kind of talk on, and Archiel, if you could talk about it a bit. So you talked a little bit, and you hinted at it. I don't know if you knew you were hinting at it, but I was very curious what your thoughts are on the matter. So I'd be curious to know what the limit of permits. So for those that don't know, in the game you have permit limits. So you essentially invest in a permit, and then the next permit is a significantly higher chunk of money, and then it keeps on going from there. But we realize it's an exponential limit that essentially you'll hit a permit that'll be like $200 million to make this next permit.
Oh, they totally are. Yeah.
And you brought on the fact that people are giving people loans so that they can produce products for people. Do you find that apparatus happening?
So you're trying to get to $1 billion, right?
That's the goal.
and there is a drop off in your ability to make income in the game just by adding another base, because the permits just get so expensive at some point. So I think if you really want to, if you're going for broke, and that might be more than $1 billion, but you got to bring in other people and set up something larger than yourself. And part of that is, maybe you can make your money just issuing loans, because there's kind of no limit to the amount of money you can make that way.
True.
sort of.
I mean, that's how banks do it. It's like how IRL
Right.
banks do it.
Yeah. The permit leasing is another thing where it's like,
Sorry, yeah, what
you
is
know,
that? Sorry, what is
yeah,
that exactly?
right. So like if you're at a place where it's 400 million to upgrade your headquarters, it's easier for you to go to somebody and say like, "Hey, I want you to build this base here. I'll send you all of the consumables, all of the materials you need for production, and you just send me the output." And like, that has been a thing, and it's existed in other forums, especially in Antares. Rise of Filth ran 30 bases or more, and he would kind of farm out and have people doing the lower tier items, and then he would collect the bigger tier items and maybe move that up. So there's people who do that in
Sorry,
various forms.
you say that Filth, he sounds like Filth in the past tense. Is he gone from the game?
Yeah, he's leaving. He's working his way out.
Interesting. Why is he working his way out?
He's got some changes in real life. He's been pretty
Okay.
public about it, that like he's going back to
I
school.
remember
and
him
stuff,
being a major
so.
player. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So yeah, definitely a huge player in Antares.
Yeah.
But I've got 4 sponsored bases. Like it's kind of a lot of work because managing the way that I manage them, at least, I'm providing everything for the base. So it works well when it's like, hey, I make polymer granulate on electronica. I have a base like that. Someone else has an identical base. I just ship up double the stuff, and like that helps as a way to double your production. So it works. Like it's logistic effort. It's coordination effort.
Yeah.
Because like,
100%.
hey, is that person gonna leave the game? Whatever. You don't know. Then you have to find a new person to take over if you've integrated that in your chain.
Mhm.
But it's so cheap because for 5 million you can set up a base that would cost me 300 million plus 5 million to set up.
Yeah. So let's yeah, sorry, I've kind of deviated there. That's my fault, not yours. I was curious. I was just curious about some things. So we talked about the meta updates of the game, the devs doing various kind of things to improve the game, and I am freaking excited for Warp Gates. I personally am like, this is gonna radicalize this game in a major way, in a good positive sense. So and I probably will interview other people about this because I'm gonna try to get some other perspectives and stuff like that. But I know that Archiel, you're pretty plugged in with the community.
We've got a council for gateway coordination in all the different regions.
Saw that. So let's start there. Well, let's not start there. I just want to. The next topic at hand is take me through. Okay, so meta updates. We got all the dev stuff, this and that. Now take me through the community updates. What have you seen been big things in the community, shifts in the community, organizations of the community, projects, paint me a story.
So the universe has evolved. It's a drastically different place. You've got, if you want a planet with scientists on it, scientists and engineers, you can have that now, anytime. Like Malahat is 600 scientists a week added, and that was unheard of at a time in the past when there were no scientists available. So like anybody can start with that. Yeah.
Sorry. Correct me if I'm wrong. The COGC was a big reason why Malahat is the way it is, correct?
Yeah, I mean it's been in electronics probably forever.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay. Yeah. I was just like, why is Malahat? I looked at Malahat and I was like, why did we pick that as the EDC planet? I'm like, oh, right, because the COGC. Yeah. Okay, sorry.
I mean, it was started off by Plexura, I think was the name.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Who put a ton of money into the infrastructure there, and I've been governing it for at least a year. And we've been running a sponsored base program there to bring people in, where we pay for your IDC base for you, and we've built 40, 50 IDC bases there.
What?
That's mostly Allocator's job.
That's
Allocator
insane.
and SidePipe, and it's usually like a rent to own thing. So like we would, they would take it over after a couple months and run it themselves.
That's insane. Like, and
Yeah.
so, but that's the big thing behind like that emergent gameplay aspect, right?
Yep.
Right? It's like you going, and I think the cool thing is I do think that was and forgive me, devs, if you're listening to this, like I don't mean to put words in your mouth, but like I do think that based on some of the conversations I did have with the devs in regards to their vision was that emergent gameplay aspect where it was very
Yeah.
much like
Yeah.
you go out into the far-flung parts of the galaxy and build this thing, and then you kind of light up a neon sign being like, hey guys, come here, let's set these
Yep.
things up and make it happen, kind of thing.
Yeah. So there's a lot of planets where your workforce is available. There's so much capital available. Another thing that's happening community wise is like BFABs, the demand is higher than the production and the market maker prices are so low, it makes sense just to mostly buy them at market maker prices. So like BFABs, I wouldn't ever recommend anyone make them anymore. Just buy them at market maker price. And it's interesting because drinking water is regularly hitting that top price, and other goods have been doing that too. And the devs have bumped up some market maker prices. I don't know. It's an interesting development.
Have you
And it does
analyzed
change the
why that
landscape.
is that because of the fact of profitability, or is it because like here's two
Yeah,
thoughts I just had. Was it because that it's no longer profitable, or is it because that there's way more profitable things out there in the market to go pursue after,
right.
and BFABs
Yeah,
are kind of a second thought?
the latter is that like you want a construction planet, you can build something else on it and make more money.
Hmm. So, and that goes to kind of Eminence's question here a little bit about, inflation and stuff like that. When
Hmm.
I came back into the game and I immediately saw that there was a lot less bid and buys for sort of I remember kind of considering everything to be under a tier system back in the day, like tier 1, tier 2, tier 3.
Yeah.
And it seems like tier 1 products really like the BFABs, the fuel, the tier 1 consumables are sort of like, it seems like everybody's kind of in. So let me ask you this, Archiel. Is it because, and I'm going to be straight with you, so I want to be kind of blunt with you for a second here. Do you think it's because that the universe has matured, and or is it because that there is less players in the game?
I do think both of those things are probably true. We do have people who watch the connection count and kind of try to infer the number of active players. And I think the devs have said that it's down a bit. Um, I think I think the universe maturing, what that looks like is that people want to move up the tiers sometimes. So people who were focusing started off just doing drinking water are now doing a little drinking water and a bunch of like fabs or IDCs and EDCs. And like that ultimately causes the inflation, I think, but I don't think that's necessarily bad. I think that's expected, and real life economists say a small amount of inflation is natural and normal. So I think that's
Hmm.
fine. I do think because you do see new players who like their third or fourth base is going to be an IDC base now, and that just uses a ton of Mia and consumables that go down the drain for that reason and turn straight into cash. Whereas like I I think that's probably the driver of why we see shortages. And we do see shortages in a bunch of random consumables that we more frequently than we did before.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I'm not too afraid of that in the sense that like somebody will fill that market and will find that market and find it. And I mean, when we
Yeah.
started pursuing EDCs a long time ago, like I remember the days. I do remember the days, and it's probably no longer the case because everybody paid attention to our videos and what we were doing. But like, I remember the days when DDT,
Yeah.
what kind of chemical is that? Like, who gives a crap what kind of like nobody gave a crap about it. It was like they were producing like 10 or 20 a week kind of thing. I was like, whatever. And now it's like DDT or like FIM meals, like any number of things. It's like, yeah,
Yeah.
we're in the higher tiers, and I think we're in a mature market. And so I want to ask you the question. Sorry, I realize we've got welcome to the podcast. We've gone off topic, but so let me ask you this then: do you think that we need a reset?
Oh, ooh, no, I don't really think so. I think the devs should continue nerfing EDC and IDC until it's no longer the most profitable item you can make in any base by a factor of 2, which is kind of where it's at now.
Okay.
And that will cause the market to correct in terms it like if we end up with more persistent shortages.
Okay, but I'm going to take you to task on something you just said then. You said correct, but correct to what?
Correct to a place where, ooh, I like that. Yeah, good call out. Good call out. A place where items are there's a failure of the market when like you can't buy something at all. And
Sure.
if that market failure happened because there's a hard coded price in place on a good like EDC or IDC, that's something that the market can't naturally correct for, because like why would you even supply this essential good if it can't be sold at the price that makes it
Well,
as profitable as EDC or
and
IDC?
and what we have here is almost an example. And like I said, I'm a pretty balanced economist in some regard. Like I did study economics and stuff like that at university, and I do understand that like capitalism unleashed, you know, late stage capitalism is not good. You need a
Sure,
dash
sure.
of. I live in Canada, right? And so we have socialized Medicare, right? I think those are good things. And like what we're seeing here in this context in the game is we're seeing socialized BFAB, right? Because here's the
Yeah.
deal. Let's go this direct. Let's go this direct. Let's be honest with ourselves here. If there wasn't market makers for BFABs, I mean, what
Oh yeah.
ungodly price could be
I
they
I
be charged
well, I mean,
at?
I think their price would be, so the thing with PP2s is that they make so many items. They make all the BFABs and all the LFABs in the PP2s. So people build a PP2 and they say, what can I build in here for the most profit? And the answer can never be BFABs, no matter how much demand for BFABs there is. So the price of the BFABs would just end up being proportional to the profit on the LFABs. And I think like it's 1.5, it'd be like 1.5x the market maker or less. So like I don't think they'd go crazy. It wouldn't be just bonkers prices on BFABs.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. I mean, you got to consider, like, I mean, the thing in particular, syrup, you said just a second ago, I wonder if anyone's figured out the rate of inflation, but keep in mind the inflation. Like, I do find problematic when a lot of politicians, especially in Canada here, talk about like, oh, that we inject so much money into the economy and that this is causing the inflation. I'm like, well, no, it's the amount of goods chasing, like, it's the amount of money chasing the amount of goods, right? And so you take BFABs, for instance, right? BFABs,
Yeah,
I mean, here's the thing. If nobody's producing them, like then somebody will try to fulfill that market and they will set the price. And then if like people aren't willing to buy it at that price, I mean somebody like that's competition. That's capitalism. That's the actual like nature of capitalism in some regard, right? I mean, welcome
yeah,
to the podcast where we talk about like IRL things too, not just
yeah.
Prosper
I mean,
University.
I,
But
I, I
like,
think I think ideally in Prosperous University, you've got a chance where like there's junk items, right? There's just items that you shouldn't make, and like medical supply items are one of them, and because they're just so bad to put into a hospital, and I'm hoping that that will change soon. I mean, there's like totally useless stuff like juice, the hyperspace juice. Like I got a bunch of hex, like it's useless. So, but like I think as a developer, go and like that would be fun to do, right? Like, medical supplies are in the game. We have a pharmacy building, and like this has been a thing for maybe like 2 years where people have been coming to me and saying like, hey, so I run the governor sheet, like the main tool that people use for governance. And it's like, hey, I want to build a hospital and put stuff in a hospital, or I want to make surgery drones. And I tell people, don't make surgery drones. Like, no one will buy them. They're not good. And I feel sad telling people that, because like the whole drone tree is an interesting production tree, but I can't in good conscience recommend people make any of them. And I'm hoping that'll change. We've been kind of going back and forth with the devs on some like possibilities for making hospitals viable and safety drone ports viable, whatever the bigger safety, the big SDP instead of SST, making that viable. And that makes the world larger for production and for the community to get involved in more items, you know.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
No,
And the part that I was
sorry,
bringing up about surgical drones is they can be put into hospitals to generate health as
right.
a governor. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's go. I'm gonna try to take the old cane on the stage and take us back to the main topic at hand. I love it. We just this is why I do this. I honestly do it. I love deviating. It's so much fun. I don't have Dez here. Dez was always the one that was always like, okay, we need to go back
Keep
on
it
topic,
on
guys. But so yeah, talking about Roche, you brought up your medical supply store. Like, so what have you experienced in the last? Let's talk about emergent gameplay. What have you experienced in terms of? You can name names if you want about different corporations or companies or quasi organizations. You talked about your gateways thing. Like, I'm really excited. That excites me.
Yeah.
That like fires my pistons. I want to know what's out there in the community right now in terms of I know Archiel when we literally last chatted like a year ago, you were talking about like Archiel insurance and like piracy and this and that. Dude,
Yeah.
freaking blew my mind. I was like, this is so cool. Like that's what excites me. So
I want people to I want people to run insurance. Like it did. I never went very far with it, and I just don't have time. But like it's totally a thing someone could
100%
run.
it is.
Like I'm running the credit bureau, and like I don't have time for that either. But like it's mostly gets ignored, the credit bureau. But man, the gateways, that it's been really interesting, really great, and I just cannot, the sheer amount of work that has gone into the gateway program has been phenomenally large. Just a huge amount of effort organizing that and setting up the rules. And that's what I like. Most of my time playing Prosperous Universe is in Discord, not in the game, because there's just so much to organize. Yeah.
Oh, well, it's funny you say that because I felt that a long time ago. When I first started playing, I was like, yeah, I play Prosperous Universe, sure, but I talk about it way more than I play it.
Yeah.
Way more. Which is cool. It is you know what is the special thing about this game and about this community is that it's a good, strong, non-toxic community. It's got good guys, it's got good people behind it. I actually don't, I'll be honest with you, I don't know if any girls play this game at all.
Period. Yeah, no, we've got a handful in our core.
Oh, you do? Cool.
Yeah.
I've never met one before. But yeah, it's got a good, strong community. And so that's what excites me about this game. And what excites me about coming back to this game is really, I'm excited to see some of these. I know Javeler, you kind of mentioned about this game lacks end game goals. 100% agree with you. 100% agree with you. That's why I was like, we need something like gateways. We need something that we can really sink our teeth into and make the emergent gameplay a very real thing and make it very tangible and something that sort of gets the community buzzing, because right now it still does. I will give it criticism. It still does feel like there really isn't an end game goal. I know you mentioned Archiel, you keep kind of implying it over and over again, which is fair, about the idea of like, what's the end game goal right now?
The end game goal, it's got to be different for everybody. You know?
It does. It does. Yeah.
And I think I think the gateways is working for that purpose.
100%.
And there's still people, you know, Fire Freak has 51 level 51 HQ, and he's still chugging on that. Like, kudos. That's more than that's not an end game goal for most people, I think, because it just gets hard at a certain point. But
100%.
There's options.
Yeah.
I
Well,
think
like
the
I said,
Apex thing like didn't work out for anybody
pardon,
too
sorry.
much. The Apex
Oh,
Representation Center,
yeah,
like,
I didn't see
you
that.
know.
I think I don't know if the devs listen to us on our podcast. If you go back a few episodes on our podcast, we chatted about the idea of building statues. Like the idea of, I mean, Lex
Yeah,
being his philosopher self, he was always chatting about like how ancient civilizations built statues and this was their goal, right? So it's
I
like
mean the Apex Representation Center is a lot like a statue in most ways. I just
100%
think
it
people
is.
didn't find it compelling because you kind of have to look to see where people are at on it. You know, like a statue is maybe in your face on your daily commute. Well, I don't know what that looks like in Prosperous Universe in
Well,
a
and
way
that's
that
just
the
it
Apex
too.
Center isn't.
Yeah. So, excuse me. Can you talk about some of the other community um, ventures that have been existing in this game and that you've seen lately that have excited you?
Uh,
If you can.
yeah,
Sorry, I'm not trying to
yeah,
put you on the spot and be like, "All right, tell me everything." But
yeah. I mean, like, so you know in the Antares development initiative is a big part of Antares. We give out $1 million grants, um, and you know anyone who shows up has a pulse and a vague idea of a plan can get that money, and that can really get them going in the game in a way that you chop off the first 2 months of the game maybe of that like, oh, it's so hard to build a second farm, it takes so much money. So like ADI is a huge player organization,
so how do people
and
find out more about ADI? Like how like what
yeah,
mechanisms or, speaking as a marketer here, how do you let people know about ADI?
I think we mention it in planet chats occasionally. I think it's it's a little challenging to do that. Like, where are the eyes going to be? Obviously, we're in the UFO Discord, and we hope that most people end up there. Um, yeah, I don't know. We have the de facto leader of ADI here. If you want to jump in at all on the chat,
Yeah.
but um, yeah, the starter planet chats are the main way that we do that.
Hmm. Interesting. That's
And
interesting because I feel like the planet chats or like I don't know. I'm going to be critical here for a second, so forgive me. But it feels like the planet chats and like the chat system in the game never really held water for me. Like held
it
water for
doesn't
me.
work for me. There's too many, and I can't check them. And I have Discord, so please, if you ever try to talk to me via the comm channel in game, don't just
It
message
ain't
me on
gonna
Discord.
happen. Yeah, I was like, it
Yeah,
ain't gonna happen. It's
but like
good, but it's not
I
used well.
I hope for a new player who's only on one planet, maybe they read their planet chat. That's
Yeah,
kind of all we got, I think.
yeah,
And yeah, I also want to shout out the best program, which is kind of like the ADI program, but over in Benton.
yeah.
Like
Well, it's great that there is the development programs because I do think that everybody does from
yeah,
development programs and this and that in general. Um, and I think it is interesting to some degree to see that um, that like player initiated sort of thing. So I guess yeah, we've talked about. Do you have any further comments before we change topics about
yeah,
community?
yeah. On the community side, I think
Yeah,
the Gateway Co-op has been a huge thing,
right. So what
and
is that? What is that? Like, take me through it. What we got cooking here?
yeah, it had so much work going into the design of the cooperative, because the issue is we've gone through the mechanics with such a fine-toothed comb of what gateways are, how much they cost, how they're going to work to the best of our knowledge. There's still some questions on that. But the gateway gets built around a planet, and the planetary government owns the gateway. So if you spend $1 billion making a gateway, someone goes in and takes the planet, like, you don't have that gateway anymore. So the co-op model has been designed to really incentivize everyone to organize together, play nice. You agree to the terms of the co-op. You'll support the ownership of that gateway. You buy shares by pricing by donating goods to the gateway. Your contributions, either in material or cash, give you shares of the gateway, and then when the gateway is used and we get toll money, they go back. The money from the tolls goes back out in proportion to the shares. So
So
It's
gateways do
a
have tolls
ton of
then, is what you're
tracking.
saying currently? I don't know much
Yeah.
about gateways, so I haven't studied them in length yet.
So our like we don't know a lot about what the usage rates are going to be, but like if a gateway jump costs 20K, 20,000 AIC, then we roughly know, like we can kind of estimate like, hey, that's a good deal for the amount of ships that it saves you, the amount of time it saves you, fly a full ship through the gateway. That's a great deal for people who are flying the ship, and that is, we believe, a sustainable like price point for us in order to pay back the gateway eventually. So, the money just doesn't disappear, but a good balance of offering utility to everyone in the region, improving the infrastructure, and hopefully having the gateway be something that's profitable for people who put in several hundred million to make it happen.
Yeah. So in terms of when you see the gateways being made, or like how
Yeah,
long do you think it's gonna now I'm asking you to give projections here. Obviously you're not a dev, but like
yeah.
when do you think these things are going to be implemented?
So the thing that I'm looking for is the dev blog where they say we flew a ship through a gateway, and that hasn't happened yet.
Interesting. Okay.
It's been like, hey, here's the interface for making a gateway, here's
Sure,
how
sure.
we upgrade a gateway, those kind of things. Like, I don't think, it's not going to happen overnight where it's like, oh, hey, the whole gateway thing was done and we just didn't tell you about it. So, like, we will have warning before it's ready. But
Yeah.
we've been ramping up. We had a system where people would pledge goods, and now more recently we've begun to collect on some of those pledges, so we can we're continually moving the process along and adding gateways to our network. Like we have two gateways that are 100% pledged, and two more that are at 74 and 34% pledged.
Oh, and I
And
mean, this
yeah,
speaks to the future that I saw with this game, right? I was talking about gateways a long time ago before they were even announced, and I said that like people would rally behind them, right? People would rally behind these
yeah,
gateways,
yeah,
make these things a big infrastructure project that like people were. It's like building roads. Why? It's like building
yeah,
highways. Like
totally.
it's like building the railway back in
It's
the
a
day,
public
right?
good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
100% it is. And I think that's awesome. I think that's so cool, and that's really something that I think that new players could see as being like a community, like, oh, is this
yeah.
something that the game built? It's like, no, the community built these things. Like these
I
are big things that the community built, which I think is so, so cool.
and I do
Um,
think, like, I expect a lot of what you're expecting, like what you're feeling. Like, yeah, I feel like everyone should feel that way. Like, there's a lot of people who are like, there's too many questions. I don't want to participate in the gateway because, like, I don't know if it's ever going to pay for itself, or like, I don't we don't really know how it works yet. But like, I feel that we have to get started on the collecting process since they're so large.
mhm.
If nobody did any planning until launch day of gateways, it would be 6 months before we had one.
Yeah,
So
100%. No, that's awesome. Like it's just a really cool, you know, when we talk about the framework of the game of what it is, like if we talk about just a game aspect, the game aspect is you fly ships from planets, trade, buy resources, smelt resources, craft resources, do this. What's the
yeah,
end game of that? What would be an end game thing of that? Well, how about change the way it's done? Like really alter the way it's done, right? And I mean it's the
sure,
same,
sure,
you go back to like classic video game theory in the sense of like, okay, you look at raids or something like that, like what do? You find an item and then you change the way how you play the game based on that item that you got from that raid, right? From that end game
yeah,
activity. Which is what we're doing here in some sort. It's kind of funny because we are in sort of uncharted territory, and so we have to ask ourselves, what would the future look like with regards to these things, which I think is really cool. Um, so then, I guess speaking, so we've talked about the meta changes in this game. We've chatted about the community changes in this game. Can you speak to a little bit about, yeah, I guess I don't know, Archiel's thoughts. Like where we at? What are your thoughts? Like what's the health of the game? How are you optimistic? Are
Yeah.
you pessimistic? Like, what do you see? What would you love to see the future? Like, so we got gateways cooking right now under the burner. So
Yeah.
gateways are cooking. What would be the next thing after gateways? I'd be really
Yeah.
curious to know what that is. Yeah. So as somebody that's been in this game for 3 years, what do
Yeah,
we got
so
cooking? What are we
I
doing?
think I think gateways have taken longer than maybe anyone expected. So it's really nice that they swapped over to do some quality of life stuff to kind of keep things flowing there. Um, I think the approach of the that they're like they're helping out every group in that who plays the game. People who are new to the game, people who are really established for a long time, people who are kind of in the middle and kind of getting into that click fatigue portion of the game. Like everybody's getting a little help there. So like I'm really excited for gateways. I'm hoping uh things in our corp are doing really well because people are always leaving the game and new people are always joining. So you kind of do have to put in that effort to keep an organization alive. And I think we're doing great. We've got our latest round of recruits are amazing. And right now they are just all stepping up to take governor slots throughout Antares. And that's a beautiful thing to see that. And I do want to encourage that more and get more variety, both well, not just in our court, but like throughout Antares because we had two players who are leaving. Paris and Rise are both leaving the game, and they had so many planets. Between the two of them, maybe 30 planets in Antares that they were running, and I really want to see that to go out to more people because like governing is a hard and thankless job, uh, but I think I'm encouraged to see more people getting into that now.
That's awesome. That's great to hear. So
Yeah,
would you say, like, I know it's maybe a bit of a blunt question, and it's somebody that's I'm coming back into the game. I am. I'm
yeah,
excited. I have a goal. I'm trying to reach 1 billion CIS. Do I know what's past that? Not a clue in the world. Um, but that's where I'm at.
yeah.
That's the thumbtack I put in the corkboard and called it a day. And sometimes that's all you can do as a content creator is give yourself a goal and run after it.
Yeah.
In terms of yeah, like, are you optimistic about things? Are you pessimistic about things? Like, what's your attitude? Like,
Yeah,
how
I
are
mean,
you feeling?
I think I'm naturally an optimistic person about all this stuff. Yeah, I'm hopeful that the game continues to grow, and like, I know there's as a developer myself, like it's tough to put time into to negotiate your time into the different tasks that you have to deal with, and I'm often in a situation where we're working on a game, but we also have contract work to pay the bills and things like that. And I don't know
100%.
exactly where the devs are at, but they've also got sim report, and Martin does side work. I know on the game design side of things. So like maybe there'll be a German grant, and we'll have a ton of dedicated time for the developers on the game.
Hmm.
That kind of thing. I'm really hopeful for. And I think the game does evolve on its own in the meta sense of like where players are at and what players are doing. So that does help for someone who has been for the kind of people who want to stick around for 3 years.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, like, I I never, never had any plans to get involved in this game as much as I did back in the day. I
Sure.
made one silly tutorial video called Avoiding Bankruptcy. Silly, just whatever. Like, here's the game, here's how you play it, right? Um, I made that video actually more out of frustration than anything else, in the sense that there wasn't like a solid tutorial, like being like, all right, this is it, this is how you play the game, kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I found myself in a community that I loved being part of, a game that I loved being part of. And it was just a really warm environment, and so for me, the past year has been um, just looking for opportunities to come back, and that
Yeah.
has been it mainly. It's just like I want to come back, but it's like I can't come back until it's like I see something that's like really worth sinking my teeth into. And I think warp gates is a big is a big reason. And so when I heard of warp gates, I was very much like, oh, this is something I could do. But it took me to come up with a theory as to how I do that.
One of the things we do at ADI is we do have cash contributions made by other people to buy the contributions that someone is making who's isn't in a position to donate things for shares, to contribute for shares. If you want cash and you want to make a bunch of solar panels, we can buy those for cash. And that's a way that we want to make that accessible to newer players too, because it's exciting, right? People want to be part of the gateway.
100%.
But you can't ask a new player to like, yeah, here's 10,000 shares and you just gave me your month of production and now you can't build your third base. Like, that would suck. We wouldn't ask that of anyone. Like, we talk people out of that.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I'm actually odd topics. Do you have anything that
I mean, we could open the floor. We got a lot of people here if anyone wants
We really
to chime in on
do.
anything.
Does anybody have anything that they'd like to talk about or discuss or interject with? If not, we'll have this awkward silence right now.
I mean, I'll interject for a little bit.
What's up, dude?
Talking about the future of the game, looking at the roadmap, we have a lot of interesting stuff that I really like that's going to come to the game, or that's planned to come to the game. One of the things is adding actually energy to the bases. I saw this on the roadmap, and that's going to change how bases are built, and actually a lot of things. How planets are run, the markets. Another interesting planned update is the space elevators.
Yeah, that was on the agenda a little earlier, and I guess it got pushed back after. Our understanding of space elevators is that it will kind of like reduce or eliminate the initial launch and landing fuel consumption. So, but I think that's a good infrastructure project, and they have more infrastructure things planned. Oh yeah, I'm looking at the roadmap and I see storefronts have moved up. Yeah, that's exciting.
I think it's cool, and I actually, what you just said, Archiel, you just said it like 2 seconds ago. I think storefronts would be a really cool aspect of this game in the sense that it's like, you have players that build these, or like companies or corporations that build these storefronts. So it's like, you got a warehouse with all these goods and things, and you build your own. Because I do think that local markets, while good, they are good. I'm not saying we take them away.
Yeah.
But I think, personally, my criticism behind them is this: you need more people for them to work. Plain and simple.
Yeah, it's private contracts and local markets are both a lot of clicks. It's a way to move stuff that's a lot of clicks. The government storefront thing was particularly around the wanting a different interface to like drag and drop things into storage. And I will say that like the motion editor for when you're a government making a motion, that like they have done a better and better job with the newer features. Like, I know a lot of people don't see the motion editor, but like it's nicer than the contract editor. It's very smooth interactions. So I feel like if they put that additional effort into storefronts and the way that you contribute items to like gateways and things like that, because you can drag and drop things into the gateway construction pool, that'll be a good quality of life improvement.
100%. Yeah, there's a lot of things on that roadmap that I'm like, I get excited for. I'm like, good. I will be critical for a second here, but I do ask the question, when? Right? I'm like, we're this far into gateways. Gateways are great. I think it's such a good goal. I think it's such an amazing goal to do. I think that's the best thing they could do right now. But after that, it's like, you need to start pursuing other things. And yeah. So no, thanks, Dex. Anything else? Sorry, Dex, that you want to say?
I like the conversation you guys had a while back about shortages in the market and also inflation. A lot of new players, especially when I joined the game, I found it really hard to purchase a lot of the input units that I was using for my base.
Yeah.
And then when I joined a corp, when I joined a really good group in game, they had their own internal market.
Yeah.
Which was completely separate from the CX, the commodity exchanges. And I feel like there's a lot of these private markets that new players don't know about.
Totally.
And that's where a lot of the resource shortages come from in the public markets.
Oh, interesting. I mean, I think, anything that doesn't move in a corporate market eventually ends up on the CX. So it's not like the goods, aren't making it to be moving to other people. So, yeah, that's an interesting take. I do think, like, yeah, get out there and get in a corp if you're not in a corp. Like, that's how you make friends in the game. That's how you have fun, if you like the person-to-person interactions. Yeah, for sure.
It's funny you say that, Archiel, because like, I mean, that situation has not changed. That situation was the exact same situation a year ago or 2 years ago when I first started playing this game.
I'm actually kind of surprised it hasn't changed, and I think the reason we didn't have a lot of corps before was that you couldn't join a corp because you couldn't be in a corp because you were a governor, and it wasn't compatible. And that's not the case anymore. Corps can exist without the governor problem. But I feel like we've lost more corps than we've gained in that time. And you have meta corps. Like ADI is, I think of ADI as like a meta corp in some ways, because people from all over are in the ADI channel and making private trades to themselves. There's an internal market there, but it's not a all in or not thing for ADI.
Yeah. No, and it's funny though, because of the sense that like I realize that like people still need slower than light fuel. It still exists. The demand is still there. People are flying ships all over the place, like constantly. Yet the buy orders seem really limited. And I'm like, it's probably because there's like intercorporation buying and selling doing here. And I'm like, fair enough. I mean, yeah, welcome to the game. Welcome to Prosperous Universe, where it's like, yeah. I mean, that's not a bad thing. It's just it's the nature of humans. It's what we do.
I think fuel is interesting because the fuel prices were increased by the devs because it was not profitable at the market maker price, and like they were pegged at market maker for a little while, but I think the fuel market is healthier now than it was. When was that? 6 months ago, maybe, when they had that change. Yeah.
Interesting. Fair enough.
Yep.
Anything else that anybody wants to bring up in regards to the game?
One thing I noticed, I'm Jay Vaylor. I'm currently the head of ADI.
Yeah.
And one thing I noticed on one of the recent blog posts was that they're adding being able to share pro license time.
I saw that.
Players.
Gifting. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
The implications of that, there's multiple. Firstly, real world trading possibilities. That's what I'm most concerned about. Although
I don't
think
it's
in
a negative sense, because I feel like that's a negative.
Yes, negative. Because I think of something like Eve, where that's a problem.
Sure.
Well, I say problem. I've never played Eve.
No, but I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they said. I think they said they expected that like you're not allowed to trade money, in-game money for subscription time.
But like,
okay, that's good.
Like, I'm sorry. I'm gonna be a pessimistic here for a second. How the heck do you enforce that? Like,
yeah,
you're gonna just have to eyeball it because I mean that's how they do multi-bot. Like, hey, is someone multi-boxing? Like, they just have to like look at it and see if they made 2 accounts with the same name. Like, I think it's never been a problem.
Eve did nothing about that. Eve did like nothing about multi-boxing, and
they encourage it.
Universe does, but yeah.
Like, I don't think you can play Eve with fewer than 3 characters, right? Like, you can't really play.
No.
Maybe that's a hot take, but
we'll have to keep that.
The other thing.
Oh, sorry.
The other thing implication is that it'll allow something like the Intaria's grant program in ADI. We could have one of the biggest turnoff for new players getting AGP is getting that initial 1 month of pro, because they don't want to spend $8 on the game. But if we could just send them like 1 day of pro to send them the contract, that introduces so many more players that we could have be recipients.
Oh yeah, that's interesting.
Cool, guys. Well, I appreciate the conversation. We're almost at an hour and 30. I mean, welcome to my life where literally we would chat for 4 hours about one topic and have a great time chatting about it.
Yeah.
I will probably cut us off here. I know that probably people want to keep chatting about things. And
Next
you know
episode.
I know exactly. That's what I learned in content creation school. Was like keep people wanting more, right? So
Yep. There you go.
So I do appreciate everybody's time here tonight, and thank you for taking the time to listen to us. And Archiel, again, thank you so much for taking the
thank
time.
you.
I know it's a super short minute in the sense of like 3 hours ago, I was like, "Hey, you want to do
I
this?"
had nothing going on. Yeah, I'm usually busy.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you taking the time, and thank you for everybody that contributed to the conversation as well. And really, really good points, and really all this jazz. Yeah, no, definitely, Syrup, what you just said. We'll definitely. I love continuing this conversation, and I love chatting with people. I'm an extrovert, so I love. It invigorates me, and I love chatting about nerdy subjects such as economy and all facets of life to some degree. So thank you so much, Archiel, for your time. I appreciate it. And yeah, for those that are wondering, I have started a road to 1 billion sort of video series on my YouTube channel where essentially, yeah, like I'm looking to hit 1 billion, whatever facet it looks like. And we're constantly doing calculations and nerdy little math to figure out, how many decades it's going to take before I get there. But slowly but surely we'll get there. I do believe we will. Well, currently it's like 143 years at Katoa Base 1. But I'm thinking at most it's probably going to take a year. Like if I start ramping up production, I mean, I'm already at the point, like I actually have been working on like video number 2, and I'm almost at like getting another refinery. Like I said, I don't want to take any loans. I'm not looking to take any loans. Like this video is really like raw, organic. Like I'm not like if I took a loan tomorrow, people are like, "Oh, he took a loan. Like he's just gonna increase his like base like by 5." It's like, no, I want to like really show people like how it's done. That's like I think that's the best tutorial video series I could ever make is like how it's done and how it's calculated and all that. So that was kind of my incentive behind this video. So anywho, so thank you so much for everybody for contributing. Archiel especially, thank you. I look forward to actually having future chats with you and others about the game and stuff like that. For those that are listening to this podcast or this audio recording, if you're interested in chatting about Prosperous Universe or talking about any sorts of topics, hit me up and we can definitely chat. But yeah, so thank you so much for everybody for contributing. And yeah, we'll see everybody next time. Thank you so much.